Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something truly fascinating and honestly a little unsettling. We're going to treat our source material, Instruments of the Legible Self, almost like a dark alchemical grimoire. We're tracing the protagonist, Sir Brain, his steep descent, and his deeply evolving existential relationship with the machine that is, quite literally, inside him. It's a grim, dark fable about the tools we build just to survive, and how those very tools inevitably end up changing us.
To understand Sir Brain's survival, we've got to examine the chapters of his dual ledger. We'll trace his path, starting with the alchemical struggle, then the forging of his ledger watch, and the compromised staff. After that, we'll break down the physics of the connection, dive into his aphorisms of survival, and finish up with accepting mere legibility.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the alchemical struggle.
So, to survive this condition, Sir Brain realizes he can't just run away. He has to take the residual nanocells inside him, which are threatening to completely overwrite him, and force them into deliberate service. He essentially weaponizes his own infection. You can really look at this through the lens of a Fichtean dialectic. On one side, you have the thesis, the honest flame. This is his organic vitality, his soft error, his human warmth. But clashing violently against that is the antithesis, the denser cells. This is the owl's synthesized pulse, a mechanical infection bringing dark fire and absolute ice, pure negation. Caught right in the middle of these two warring forces, Sir Brain begins a desperate experiment to stabilize his dual ledger before it completely collapses.
Which leads us to Section 2, Forging the Ledger Watch.
Out of this brutal internal war comes a synthesis. Sir Brain forges his first alchemy technological tool to basically redefine measurement itself. Think about a traditional historical watch. It measures external time, it has a numbered face, it tracks hours. The ledger watch? Totally different. It has absolutely no numbers, just a single, unbound hand that measures his internal tension. When the mechanical, denser cells dominate, the hand approaches permanence, and the watch grows physically cold. But when his soft error, his honest flame regains ground, a faint warmth returns to the metal. He refuses to give it a comforting name. It's simply the ledger watch.
This brings us to a profound realization, recorded as his aphorism of the first making. Every device that claims to measure the self becomes an accomplice in the self's revision. This watch isn't just passively observing his internal nanotide. By giving him a constant feedback loop, it actively participates in the argument of his very existence.
Moving on to Section 3, the compromised staff.
Sir Brain realizes he also needs physical grounding, so from a hidden mechanical garden mapped by the owl and the android, he harvests lengths of synthetic wood. He shapes this violet brass grain, which still remembers both the organic forest and the industrial forge, into a staff that also serves as a cane. Embedded inside it is a continuous filament carrying the exact same synchronized current that animates his ledger watch. It's brilliant, really. It's a portable soft air given physical weight and reach, completely blurring the line between pure nature and pure mechanism.
The crucial point of this tool is found in his aphorism of the second making. He who walks with a staff of compromised wood admits that the path itself is already half artificial. Using this staff was a massive philosophical concession for him. He had to openly admit his path was half artificial. To stubbornly refuse that admission, to pretend he was still purely human, would just be another form of absolute ice. It would mean being consumed entirely by the mechanical negation.
So how do these objects actually work? Let's hit Section 4, Physics of the Connection.
To truly understand how these strange tools bind him, we have to look at the physical mechanics. The original template was drawn from a character named Elara. Her bracelet used magnetic electric cartography to link her to the owl. But Sir Brain didn't just copy her design, he answered it. His watch and staff link him directly to his residual denser self, but without requiring his full surrender. The honest flame acts as this deliberate, calculated yield flowing through the objects. It gives up just enough ground to prevent the dark fire from claiming sole authorship over his body.
But of course, this strategy comes with a massive warning. Captured in his aphorism of method, the most dangerous experiment is the one that succeeds in making the temporary feel sustainable. See, his previous 7 days had taught him the vital art of actually listening to his body. These new tools, however, threatened to teach him at dangerous reliance. They offered a temporary balance, potentially holding off his total transformation into the mechanical ticking entity known as Big Ben for maybe 6 additional days, but they functioned so seamlessly that they masked his underlying deterioration.
Now for Section 5, the aphorisms of survival.
To measure the exact, unvarnished truth of his fractured existence, Sir Brain puts his new instruments to the ultimate test. First, he tests the watch against his own pulse. The unbound hand hesitates, then thankfully settles nearer the warmer mark. This proves his vitality registers as a measurable resistance to negation. Next, he strikes the staff lightly on the workshop floor. It returns this haunting, dual tone, a lonely mechanical heartbeat layered perfectly with the irregular breath of a forgotten wind spirit. The final conclusion? Neither object purified him. They simply made his internal fracture devastatingly articulate.
And this brilliantly illustrates his ultimate realization, written down as the aphorism of result. Salvation is a word that belongs to those who still believe the ledger can be closed in their favor. For Sir Brain, true salvation is a myth now. These instruments close absolutely nothing. His only hope, the only victory available, is merely delaying the inevitable collapse, just keeping those opposing columns readable for a little longer.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 6, Accepting Mere Legibility.
Picture this grim conclusion on his workbench. The ledger watches ticking, but to absolutely no external hour. Here we see the stark, painful contrast between what he wanted and what he got. Sovereignty is the total dominance and purity of self, but legibility, that's the grim acceptance of a dual ledger. Looking at his synthetic wood staff leaning against the wall, literally like a question that had learned to stand upright, Sir Brain recognizes he has to completely abandon the dream of pure sovereignty and just settle for remaining legible.
Because the reality is, the battle isn't won. Even as he sits there, those dense, cold nanocells continue their quiet, relentless arithmetic inside him. The denser prophecy of his eventual machine consumption still stands. Yet crucially, the honest flame still answers. For the span of these objects' function, through the careful use of his watch and staff, the page of his existence remains unwritten, just for a little while longer.
So, as you reflect on this beautifully dark fable of the legible self, I want you to ask yourself a question about your own reality. What temporary solutions do you rely on in your daily life? And more importantly, as we constantly construct devices to track and measure our own vital tensions, our health, our time, our productivity, are those tools merely observing our nature, or are they, like the ledger watch, accomplices in our own revision? Are the very tools used to measure your life slowly rewriting who you are? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll leave you with that thought to ponder.